Hello, I'm John Leidreiter. We're going to tan some sheepskins together via this videotape. After you've watched the tape through, you'll be able to make soft woolly sheepskins like these. And from the sheepskins, you can then make a whole host of handcraft items, such as floor mats, bedspreads, underbed covers, baby mats, moccasins, car seat covers, to name a few. We'll have a look at some of those now.
That just about finishes that.
What are we making here?
Oh, I've been making a sheepskin mat here. I've sewn all little pieces of sheepskins together to form a mat. Would you like to see it?
Yes, let's see it. Hey, that's really nice.
There it is. It's all finished.
Well, these are some of the ideas we were talking about inside. Car seat covers. Now, there's a steering wheel cover. That's made from scrap. That's easily sewn together. These can be done more easily than you think. Take a piece of brown paper, cut it to the shape of your seat, and trace it onto the sheepskin, then hand stitch it together. Now, I love to travel in moccasins. They keep your feet warm and they're very comfortable to drive in. Now, these are just a few ideas for you to think about when you tan your sheepskins. This is Leidreiter's commercial tanning kit. It's useful for tanning quantities of small skins or tanning cattle hides or large hides. Now, for this demonstration, we'll be using a Leidreiter's utility tanning kit. It's much smaller. That's all we'll need to tan sheepskins. Let's have a look at what's inside one of these kits. Firstly, there's a set of instructions. Most of what I say, if not all of it, will be in this booklet. During the video, we'll go through it in detail. The first item you'll be using in the kit will be the utility tanning knife. It's used for scraping out the fat and rubbing off the meat of sheepskins before we start tanning them. But it's also used at the finish when we have to break or soften the sheepskin. The tanning formula is a water-soluble concentrate. We mix that with water, or we can paint it onto skins to tan them. Lastly is leather lube. It's a preserving, softening agent that's brushed onto sheepskins after they're tanned. It preserves them and leaves them in a washable state so that they can be washed during the life of the skin if they need it. Now, through video and through a trick of time, we can pretend we're going to travel back in time and show you how these particular three skins were tanned using that tanning kit. Now, it's this skin, this one, and this one. We're up to preparation. The preparation for a sheepskin is to inspect it and salt it. Now, we'll have a look at this one. Now, that's nicely skinned and doesn't have any cuts in it, but it does have a layer of fat on it. Now, the salt won't work through the fat, so what I'll need to do is rub the fat off and then salt it. The best way to rub the fat off is to put it on a tanning beam, and we'll do that right now. I'm going to use a blade tanning knife. That's the fastest and easiest way to rub fat out of a sheepskin that's fatty. You can, of course, use either of the other two tanning knives. That's a commercial tanning knife or a utility tanning knife, but this one's much quicker for this job. Now, if you look at the blade of the knife, you'll see the fat is picking up across the blade. I just rub that off with my finger and drop it onto the ground. Move the skin around to a new place and rub it again. You can see the fat coming off there in large pieces. I'll rub it off and I'll pull this piece off here with my hands. Look at that, big lumps of it. That's got it done. There's no more to come off that skin. So now we'll salt it. The salt we're going to use is fine cooking salt. Cooking salt is better than coarse salt, but if you have no other choice, flossy fine is okay. Coarse salt is your last choice. The fine salt absorbs into the skin batter and preserves it for a longer time. Now sprinkle it quickly over the skin to an even depth of about 2 millimetres. There's no great care needed in salting the skin. Just make sure you use plenty of it. There are no lumps of meat on the skin and that you get rid of the fat. Salt won't work through fat. The salt has to absorb into the skin. That's to kill the bacteria so that you don't lose the wool when it's tanning. Okay, having sprinkled a liberal coating of salt all over the skin, we rub it out to the edges, make sure it goes up the legs and under the folds. And then we fold the skin up. Now you fold it up so that you don't lose the salt. Fold in the edges, fold up the end, and fold down the neck too. Now if we roll that up, it makes a little parcel, and we roll that into a sack or a newspaper parcel so that it won't dry out completely, and we store that in a cool place for 24 hours. Then we'll unroll it and salt it a second time. Our sheepskin's been salted for 24 hours, so we'll have a look at it. It's important to leave it salted 24 hours because it draws the moisture out of the skin and goes sloppy. See how sloppy that is? Now, we're going to drain the juice off, and that's so that the second lot of salt will dehydrate the skin even further. Now it's important to dehydrate the skin because that spoils the skin for bacteria to live in. They like a wet, juicy skin to live in, and they breed up and cause hair slip or the wool to fall out when you're tanning it later. Now, you need to leave that hang there for about an hour to drip dry, but we're not going to take that long. I'll pretend that's been there for an hour, then take it back down and salt it again. This second salting is important because it changes the nature of the skin too, and that helps the tanning chemicals. That makes a softer leather and a stronger leather too. Now again, we use cooking salt, and we salt it all over the same as we did the first time. Sprinkle the salt liberally all over the skin. Then rub it out to the edges, the same way as we did it the first time. Out to the folds, down the legs. Now, having salted it twice, I can store this skin and it will keep for 1 month in summer weather or 2 months in winter. Now, during that time, I need to get round to tanning it. But if for some reason I wanted to tan the skin straight away, I could sprinkle it with apple cider vinegar. Now, a minimum salted time needs to be 5 days to change the nature of the hide. That's 5 days after the second salting. But if I want to tan it in 24 hours, I sprinkle it with vinegar. Now I can use white vinegar or brown vinegar. They're table vinegars, but apple cider vinegar seems to be a little better than the others. So if I want to tan this skin, say, in 24 hours' time and not wait the 5 days, I sprinkle the vinegar all over the skin like that to make it into a sloppy slurry. Now rub that paste all over the skin like that. Make it nice and wet. Maybe put a little bit more up the middle here. Use plenty of vinegar. Now I'll roll that up so that I don't lose the wet paste. I'll roll in the edges again. And again make a parcel out of the skin. Roll down the neck and roll it up and store it in a cool place for 24 hours. When I'll flesh that skin, then it can go straight into a tanning bath and we can go ahead and tan it. Let's flesh the sheepskin. To do that, it's best if we put it on a tanning beam. Now this is a tanning beam, Leidreiter's tanning beam. It's a fold-away apparatus. It has a curved surface here with a piece of carpet on it and a timber board down the front with folding legs. To set it up, we just have to let it lean forward like that. That spreads its own legs and we put the sheepskin on it. It makes a stable tanning beam and it's easier to flesh because we're working downhill on the skin. Now, we'll shake the salt off the skin and place the neck of the skin at the top of the beam. Now, give it a bit of a stretch. I think we're upside down. That's better. Give it a bit of a stretch to take the wrinkles out of it and to tighten it. We'll start by using a utility tanning knife. Now, the best hole for the utility tanning knife is to face the teeth away from you. With little short strokes, we can pick up the flesh membrane like that and start it rolling right down the face of the skin. If the teeth clog, just clean them and throw the skin into a bucket. Okay there. Can you come in a little bit closer? That's it. And you can see the flesh membrane there picking up. There it is there. That's the flesh membrane and it's rolling off the skin. And this part's been fleshed. We don't need to be any more fussy than that. That's clean enough for tanning. You can see how that knife works. It's very good for sheepskin. Now we'll give it a try with a commercial tanning knife. That's a two-handle tanning knife and we hold this one flat on the skin. It has an advantage in that by using two hands, if you're doing a lot of skins, it's less tiring. There again, if the teeth clog on the knife, just clear them with your fingers and carry on. Right, that's a fairly simple operation. It's straightforward and easy to do. Now, there's one more tanning knife that's worth trying, and that's the blade tanning knife. So just pull the skin up to a new place and continue fleshing. Stretch it, that's so that it won't ride up in front of the blade. This is a blade tanning knife, and it comprises a stainless steel blade and two wooden handles. Now again, we start by doing little short strokes to pick up the flesh membrane. That seems to be going fairly well. If it clogs, just clean the blade with your finger. Now the blade knife's particularly good for sheepskins because it picks up the fat very well and it's quick. When it rides up, the skin rides up, just go down ahead and pull it to get rid of the wrinkles. Right, that's all there is to it. Having fleshed the skin all over and rubbed the fat out, we next proceed to wash out the lanolin or wool grease. That's a fairly easy job. We'll do that next.
John?
Yeah?
Where are you going?
I'm just going over to the laundry to wash these 2 sheepskins I've just fleshed.
I hope you're not going to use my washing machine.
Your new one?
Yes.
Oh, I wouldn't go near that.
You better not. I'm going out in the back paddock now to work.
Righto.
See you later.
Bye. Right, we'll give these a wash in the tubs. Now, we'll first of all measure some water into the tub. And into this water we're going to add some dishwashing detergent again. The amount of dishwashing detergent is important because we've got to dissolve most of the wool grease or yolk out of the wool of the skin. So we'll be using round about a dessert spoonful per litre of water used. Now I'm using a bucket in here and I've got 10 litres of water in it, so I'll put in 10 spoonfuls of dishwashing detergent. Don't use any other additive at this stage or it'll interfere with your tanning process later. Okay, that's 8, 9, 10. Now I'll give the skin a bit of a thorough wash in that and let it soak a while too. Now we use cold water because if there's any blood in the skin, it'll soften it and take it out. It would be an idea after giving it a wash to leave it, say, for half an hour to soak the blood, then wash it again. But an easier way is to use a washing machine. That gives me an idea. Oh, look, she's gone. I can see the horse. She's way up the back. Tell you what, let's put it in the washer. Okay. The washer's already full and holds 60 litres, it says. So, work that out. That's about 300 mils of dishwashing detergent. That's that much. We'll put that in, drop the skin in, and only do one at a time. I've taken the worst of it out anyway with my hand washing there first. She'll never know. Well, these are the 2 skins that we've fleshed and washed, and we've let them drip dry overnight. We need the drip dry weight to calculate the amount of chemical and additives to make a tanning bath to tan these 2 skins. Now they weigh Yep, just over 7.5 kg. Right, now to mix a tanning bath, to tan these two, we'll need a plastic container like this. We'll need 45 litres of water, and we'll need some salt and some tanning formula. We mix all that together and it's called a tanning bath. Now the water we put in there needs to be soft water. Seawater's okay, tank water, most town water is, but if you've got hard water or bore water, it won't be suitable. Now we can't use a metal container either because it might react with the tanning chemicals and spoil the skins. I've already got 45 litres of water in there. Now a ½ litre of tanning formula will tan 6 kilograms of skin, that's maximum. If we put more skins in there than it can tan, we'll lose them. So we'll pour in the ½ litre, and we'll also need another quarter bottle, which I've already measured out here, and we'll put that in as well. Right. Now to that we'll add 2.5 kg of salt. This is common cooking salt. And now we'll stir all that up, and that's a made-up tanning bath. We'll put the skins in one at a time and try not to trap any air. If we feed them over the edge of the tub like that, so they go under slowly, we mightn't get too many air pockets in there. Air pockets stop the tanning. Right, now if we push them around under the tanning solution, we can get rid of the air pockets if there are any. Now we'll stir these around each morning and every evening for about 3 days. That's a normal tanning time. We'll also inspect them each day to see how tanning penetration is progressing and if any further fleshing is needed. Now that's all there is to tanning sheepskins in an immersion tanning bath. That should do for a rack. Now we'll spread this skin out on it. There is another way to tan sheepskins, that's by the painting method. To do this we need a frame covered with bird wire or plastic mesh or something that won't rust. Now, if you have a mesh on here that's rusty, it'll stain the wool on the sheepskin. That'd spoil it. The frame's holding the skin a few inches above the floor. That's so that the tanning solution we're going to paint on will drain through and not run underneath the skin if we overflow the edge. Now, to make up a solution for this type of tanning, we need 3 litres of water, into which we pour 120 mils of Leidreiter's tanning formula. That's 120 mils. And to that we need to add some apple cider vinegar. Now this is the same cider vinegar as I've been recommending for other use. It's table vinegar. It can be cider, white vinegar or brown vinegar. It really doesn't matter. And we put 60 mils of that in. We mix that around, then paint it onto the skin. There's no great ability needed to spread it on the skin. You can pour it on quite quickly like this, then just spread it quickly with a paintbrush. This needs to be painted onto the skin about 3 times a day, morning, noon and night. If you're busy, of course, and you can't get to it at the middle of the day, morning and night will do. It'll just take an extra day or so to tan. Right, having sloshed that all over, we need to cover it with a sheet of plastic. That's to stop it from drying out. Now, before we put the plastic on, we'll sprinkle on some salt. That's common cooking salt, the one we always use when we're tanning, and sprinkle it all over. Now, when we're salting this skin, we only need to do this the once. We can give it a light second coat of salt through the tanning process, but you don't need to do it every time you put on the tanning solution. That'd be more salt than we need to use. Right, now the salt helps tanning penetration. It also helps keep the tanning solution on the surface and keep the skin moist. Sheet of plastic to stop the skin drying out. Now, if you like to sweep that on, it sucks down onto the skin like Glad wrap and keeps everything nice and wet, keeps the flies off, and it actually spreads an even film of liquid, that's the tanning solution, underneath the plastic, and you can sweep it out to the edges very easily. And that's all there is to that. Now, you'll get twice as many skins if you use this method as you would to tanning skins in a tanning bath where we immerse them underneath a solution. That's because the wool on sheepskins absorbs quite a bit of the tanning formula and reduces the number that you could tan with it. Give it a try. I think you might like this idea.
Don't bring those skins back into the laundry. I'm washing all day today.
Righto. I just got kicked out of the laundry. But it doesn't matter. We'll check these skins. I'm taking them out of the tanning bath. They've been in there now 24 hours. And they need to be checked on the tanning beam. That is, we give them a rub all over to see if there are any patches of meat or fat that we've missed in the first fleshing. Now, this is one reason why we don't need to be so particular with our first fleshing, because we're going to do it a second time, and this time it's easier. You'll find the tanning chemicals soften the meat and it rubs off very easily. We're also looking for patches of fat. Now, fat's more serious. We can't leave that on there after the first fleshing because the tanning won't take it all. And if we're looking for patches of fat, the blade knife's the best by far. The fat will pick up on the blade, you just rub it off and throw it on the floor. Now, there's another reason for rubbing the skins all over, and that is that it stretches them. It stretches the fibres apart and helps the tanning chemicals get in. It makes better leather. That helps make softer leather, but it also flattens the skin. By stretching it, it starts to lose its animal shape, and you get a nice flatter mat. Now, this skin's starting to go quite fibrous, and that's what we want. It's turning into leather. See, there's nothing to that. It's a very quick job. Right, now while we're here, we'll check it for tanning penetration. We'll see how tanning's going. Pick a point near the neck, because that's usually the thickest, and make a cut. Then if you look across the thickness of that cut, you can see there's still a line of white there, so it isn't quite tanned through. What we'll do is put the skin back in the tanning bath and give it another 24 hours. We'll check these skins again and see how they're going. We're pulling them out of the tanning bath this time, and we're going to check them to see if they're tanned right through. The way to do this is to pull the skin up and find a thick part around the edge, then make a cut with a knife about 1/2 inch or 1 centimetre long. Now look at the thickness of the cut, or a cross-section of the skin where you've nicked it, and you'll see that it's blue. The blue colour is from the tanning bath, and it's penetrating right through to the wool roots. Now it will be darker on the flesh side than the wool side, but provided that you can detect even the faintest blue colour on the wool roots, the skin's tanned. Now make a nick in several thick places, that's usually around the neck and around the tail, and if it's tanned through, the blue colour's gone right through in all these places. Now this nick's interesting because it's very pale at the wool roots, but that's good enough. Provided it's not white, it'll be okay. It's reasonable to assume if we nick it in several places that it's tanned right through in the thinner places if we check the thick places. Squeeze out the tanning bath, and we're going to, he's quite heavy now, he's wet too, going to put this into a rinse water. That's a tub of clean water, and into the rinse water we need to add some dishwashing detergent. About 1/4 cup would be ample. This helps remove a lot of the salt and the tanning bath chemicals and gets rid of some of the sheep smell and helps to get rid of some of the lanolin or wool yolk. Now rinse it round in there very well. You could even let it soak a few minutes. And you'll see the wash water's going a blue colour. That's because it's pulling out the tanning chemicals. Just wring it out again. And this time we're going to give it a thorough wash. You'll probably notice here that the wool isn't really white yet. So we'll do something about that now. We'll use a sheet of plastic and spread the skin out on the plastic. Now, we're going to take soap powder here. I've tried lots of soap powders. While I don't do commercials, Drive seems to whiten sheepskins better than most. And if you're in USA or Canada, I've tried most of the soap powders on the market over there and found that Tide is the best one. The best one for this job. There's 1/2 a cup of soap powder. I'm going to sprinkle that all over the wool fairly evenly. Because if you had a bigger skin, you might need a little bit more than that. I ran out there, so I'll put a little bit more on. You'll probably notice if you look closely that the stain or dirtiness on a white skin is only on the tip. It's quite white underneath. So if I rub this soap powder around until I dissolve it, that's until it mixes in with the water that's in the wool, I get quite a strong concentration of soap powder on the wool tips. Now that's just what we want, because they're the dirty parts. There's no point in putting a lot of soap powder further down into the tips. Now if I leave it up this way, the skin's going to dry. The tips will. They'll dry first. But if I turn the skin over, the water that's in the wool is going to drain down to the tip. And that's just what we want, because then we've got a slurry of soap powder right on the wool tip where it's dirty, and the sheet of plastic underneath will hold the moisture there And I'll leave this for about an hour, then we'll wash it out. That gives us our best chance of whitening the wool. Let's sneak a turn in the washer. Now, all we've got in the washer here is clean water, because there's plenty of soap powder in the skin. Remember, it's been in soap powder slurry for nearly an hour. I only put one skin in at a time, because a wet sheepskin's quite a load for the washer. Oh, that looks pretty good. Yes, that's okay to come out. Now, I haven't spun it dry. That's for a special reason, because one sheepskin in there would be off centre and the machine would jump all around the room, I think. So I'll do that by hand. And while we're talking about washing machines, if you're going to spin dry in a washer, or you do have a bigger one, it'll have to be balanced with two small skins, but I think that's a bit of a heavy load for a machine. Remember the black skin? We'll give him a turn, wash him up too. That won't take long. Now for this sheepskin, it's got 3 centimetre long wool. We suggest you don't try and tan them with wool much longer than that. You'll have all kinds of trouble cleaning the wool. The tanning's no problem, but the wool is. I'll spread it out on a rack. I'm putting it on a rack because the air can get under it and the skin will dry more quickly, and I can put it out in the sun too. If you don't have a rack, you could tack it out, but it's not necessary to tack out sheepskins. They dry quite flat anyway. Take a bottle of Leidreiter's leather lube and shake it very thoroughly. Now you need to shake it to mix the ingredients, because the ingredients separate fairly quickly. They're meant to. Now they separate into the 2 layers of the sheepskin, the dermis and the epidermis, and by doing that they get a special softening effect on the leather. Leidreiter's leather lube also leaves the skin in a washable state. That means that during the life of the sheepskin, if you need to wash it for any reason, you can put it in a washing machine and there's no worries, it won't spoil it. Right, now let's measure. I'll just pour that into a bowl and apply it with a paintbrush. Apply it evenly with quick strokes. There's no ability needed for this job. Now if you're finding that the leather lube sops in or absorbs too quickly into the skin, you can sprinkle the skin with water, because we've got the calculation right, we've done the weighing, and if it were a little bit too dry for you, that would stop it from sopping into the skin too quickly before you got it all over the skin. Right, you can see what I'm doing there. I keep stirring the leather lube while I'm applying it. That's with the brush to keep it mixed in the bowl, and paint it onto the skin. Now take warning here that if you don't put enough leather lube on, or you don't go to the trouble to calculate correctly, the skin could dry hard and it could be spoilt and you mightn't be able to fix it. Take notice of that, it is important. To get the right rate of application for leather lube, consult one of these books. This booklet comes with the product, And this is a tanning Bible written by myself. Everything's in there, and if you need to consult it, you'll be able to work it out. Now what we've done here is shifted the skin into the sun, and we've stretched it slightly with these wool bale fasteners. They're a great idea because you can pin the sheepskins to the fence if you have a netting fence, or in the chicken pen if that's a help. But if you're serious about sheepskin tanning, you'll make up a rack because you can shift it in and out of the sun. We don't want it in really hot sun like summertime, but you can bring it in out of the rain if it rains. Now don't forget to put the leather lube onto the skin while it's still wet. If you let the skin dry before you apply the leather lube, you might ruin the skin. There might be no saving it. Skins dry more quickly on a rack when you turn them in sunlight. This sheepskin's ready to come off. It's about 80 or 90% dry, but if we unfasten it before it's completely dry, it softens a little more and makes a nicer product. Now we're taking out the wool bale fasteners, and we're going to put it on the tanning beam and do the last step, which is breaking. We'll dress the fur or comb the wool, get the burrs out and brighten that up later. We're finished with that. Right. The breaking process is the last process in tanning a sheepskin. It gets its name from the fact that it stretches and breaks the fibres apart inside the hide. Now, if you let a sheepskin dry naturally, it glues together and goes into a boardy, hard, dry state. With leather lube, it goes between the fibres, and they glue together a little bit, but they can be broken or stretched and softened. Now, I'm going to use Leidreiter's commercial tanning knife and use the blade in a stretching, pushing, rubbing action to soften the skin. If you've got the right amount of leather lube, it's not hard work, and the skin comes up nice and soft. Now, they're hard rubbing strokes, about 1 centimetre apart or ½ inch. I'll go all over the hide in one direction, and then I'll go across it. Now that stretches the skin in 2 directions, and that'll give a softer leather. Just have a look at that. That's lovely. Right, while we're on it, we'll use the utility tanning knife. It's also suitable for softening sheepskins. Now we're using the blade, and I'm pushing it away from me, again with hard rubbing strokes. Now for sheepskins, one's as good as the other. Do take care around the flanks because they're a bit weak and they can tear. Now I'll rub it across the other way. That's all there is to breaking. Look at that, it's lovely. I'm just sanding off this sheepskin. You'll remember we did the breaking on them and softened them on the tanning beam using a Leidreiter's tanning knife, commercial tanning knife. And I'm wearing a mask to keep the dust out of my lungs, and I'm working outdoors because it's nicer. The machine I'm using is a belt sanding machine, but you can use a disc sander like this one. One's as good as the other. I use both at times. Now, sanding a skin softens and smooths the flesh side of it. You don't have to do it. If you're using mats yourself, it may not worry you to have them looking a bit scruffy on the back, because after all it's on the floor, isn't it? If you're selling skins, it does make a difference. Have a look here and you'll see what I mean. See, I've sanded this one off and left this patch here, and that's the difference. Now, around the edge you'll see I've marked with a chalk a line where I'm going to trim the skin. That's to cut off the dirty edges and the brittle hard edge, and to give the skin a nice symmetrical finished shape. To do this you need a sharp knife, and you can put a weight on the skin to help hold it. Then cut just inside the mark, and that gets rid of it so that when you're finished you don't have lines on the skin. Now, if the knife's sharp, it's not a hard job at all. I'm not cutting onto the bench, because if I did it would cut through the wool and leave a funny looking edge that spoils the look of the edge of the skin. Now, having gone that far, just turn it around and keep going. The weight's a help. It's as good as another hand in helping to hold the skin. Right, just keep turning it around and placing the weight. You can do one whole side at a time. So there's 4 even runs to cut the skin into a nice shape. These sheepskins are often used in hospitals for convalescing people. They're very good for that use, and it's also a possible market for selling them, because they're washable, and there's nothing nicer to sleep on for an invalid than a washable sheepskin. Okay, that's it. Now have a look at that. That's much nicer. It looks finished. There's one more thing we can do to make it even better, and that's to brush the wool. Now, to brush the wool, a good idea is to use something like a steel bristle brush. Here's one here, and just rub the wool over, and that teases it and fluffs it, makes it nice. Now go backwards and forwards in 2 directions and it fluffs it more. Another good idea is to use a curry comb. That's one something like that. It's a horse curry comb, one you rub the horse down with. It's good for getting out the burrs and teasing the wool. Now, if you're using short wool skins, there's not much work to it. Long wool's quite a problem because the burrs get bedded down and there's a lot of teasing, a lot of cleaning. We always recommend short wool for that reason. Now, that's come up very nicely. Very pleased with that. One more hint that's worth trying is tip dyeing. Now, sometimes you can get a better sale effect if you're tanning sheepskins for a handcraft and you're able to sell the skins. You can take some wool dye, mix it stronger than the maker says, and tip it into a little bowl like that. Dip in the brush and just rub it lightly over the tips of the wool like that to tint the tip. Before you do that, use a piece of scrap offcut. That's to experiment with before you put it onto your actual work skin. I'll show you one that's done like that. It looks really good. Here's one that's been tip dyed. I think it looks magnificent. There's how the white sheepskin's turned out. It's soft and nice. And the black skin, you'll remember we tanned these three skins using Leidreiter's utility tanning kit, and these are the three that we did in the demonstration. And the black and white one too over here. Now, Leidreiter's utility tanning kit is complete with directions on how to tan these skins. But if you want to go further and learn more about it, obtain a copy of this book, a handbook on knives, skinning and tanning, written by myself. In its pages, you'll find lots of illustrations on how to tan sheepskins and other skins, and lots of ideas on how to sell skins to make your hobby both pleasurable and profitable. There's no reason why the skins you tan shouldn't turn out as nice or nicer than the ones I've tanned here in the demonstration. People come from far away to see Leidreiter's tanning method demonstrated. Seeing a rawhide turned into useful fur or piece of leather sets the mind thinking of endless handcraft possibilities. Men, women and children of all ages are fascinated. Just about everyone can tan skins with a Leidreiter's tanning kit. Finished leather can be coloured any shade. Here, a flitch of timber serves as a tanning beam to flesh this goat skin at the wood heap. Skins from many different animals can be tanned, even fish skins, cane toads and reptiles. Taxidermists use Leidreiter's tanning kits. Brian Johnson from Mudgee is an excellent taxidermist. Here he is with a goat skin and a fox skin he has just finished. School children are proud of their tanning efforts, as these photos show. The proud owner of a sheepskin mat he tanned himself, a Lismore High School student. A whole class of proud tanners from Gloucester High School. This pop from Victoria is so proud of his sheepskin tanning, he sent me this photo. No unpleasant smells, so the neighbours don't mind at all. Leidreiter's Leatherland is the name of our shop. Leidreiter's tanning kits are manufactured in the factory behind the shop. Now let's look around our shop here at Leidreiter's. The theme here is always leather. We also stock fittings, applications, furs, books, buckles, straps, leather itself, leather rivets, tools and ornaments, and saddlery. When passing through Tweed Heads, come and see us. Tanning help is always freely given.
Now don't forget to come in and share your tanning successes with us.